Okay, people. So I am joined today by writer, director Julian Gibby. Mm, Gil.
Gilby.
Yes.
There you go. We're there. We're there. Yeah, Julian Gilby.
Julian, thank you for your time. I really appreciate that. Yeah, must be busy. Summit Fever is now out, and yeah, I'm sure you've got a whole heap of interest around that. How's it been?
Yeah, it's been an interesting sort of journey making the movie. For it's taken a long time to make the film. And there's been a pandemic in between. But yeah. How's it been? It's always a rocky road making a movie. I'm sure you know. So yeah. I can get into a million specifics, but I'm sure you'll sort of throw the one at me.
The thing that I find interesting, I mean, there's a lot because the technical skill of filming this film was just surprised the hell out. Like just watching the shots and the cinematography, it's just like, how the hell did they get that? But reading in the press, Pat, you started rock climbing in what, 2008?
Yeah, I'd say that was when I started putting ropes and stuff on. I sort of climbed mountains beforehand, but yeah, that was when I sort of started taking interest in it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, you're what, three films in? You've just done Rise of the Foot Soldier, which was hugely popular. It's branched off into a big franchise of its own now. Like you're just hitting that stride, and now you're like, yeah, let me climb mountains. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The thing is that Rise of the Foot Soldier didn't become a franchise for a lot of years after. I very much resisted. I didn't really think it necessarily warranted a sequel. I mean, not to ruin it for anybody, but they all got killed in the first film, and
Yeah.
we show them get killed in the first film at the very beginning of the first film. So we show the deaths at the start, and so I think it's one of those things where it's prequel upon prequel upon prequel, and that's fine. Good luck to them, but it's not something I want to sort of keep doing because I want to do different things.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so we sort of went into the sort of a lonely place to die thriller territory up in Scotland and had a wonderful time doing that, instead. And then yeah, and then here we are, a few movies and bits and pieces later with Summit Fever, which we shot in the Alps, which is a big step up location wise, practical wise than anything. I mean, Tin and our producer, he's like, I've never had to factor in acclimatization into any schedule before. I'm like, you are now. Everyone's going up to thousands of feet, and you have to acclimatize to that. Yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned a trip to France that kind of was the thing that got your mind thinking about this film, right? And I think we've seen a lot of it, especially there's been a lot of climbing documentaries, and there's films like The Ledge and Fall that came out this year, right? With all these docs and everything like that have done so well, Dawn Wall, Free Solo, 14 Peaks, what was it like when you were doing this? Did you feel any kind of pressure to be like, I need to be like this, or I want it
No,
to impact?
no, no. This film was just a personal project that I started writing a long time ago, and some people have reacted wonderfully to it and had a wonderful time, and other people have been more cynical to a very sort of simple story of youngsters climbing mountains and getting into all sorts of trouble. And to the cynics, I say, fuck off. Actually, I really do. Um, the story that sort of inspired me, I suppose, the inspiration behind it. We've all been young, we've all fucked up, we've all done all sorts of crazy stuff, right? But Touching the Void, which I thought was one of the finest documentaries, dramatic, otherwise
Mm,
reconstructions. But the book Touching the Void is even more detailed, but as it would be. The book is an incredible piece of literature. Anyone who's ever wants to literally just, if you've got an aeroplane journey, anything else you got to do, forget watching something, read something, just get a copy of Touching the Void and read it. It's just extraordinary. But his prequel slash sequel book is a book called This Game of Ghosts. And Joe Simpson writes about, you know, him and his friends aged 19, 20, 21, staying out in Chamonix, completely skint, working as alpine bin men so that they can earn a bit of money, you know, just to exist really. And they're sleeping on each other's floors in the winter, sleeping in tents in the summer, and doing these crazy fucking alpine mountaineering up on, you know, the Petit Dru, Mont Blanc, the Aiguilles, the Eiger, the Matterhorn, etc., etc., etc. And I thought, shit, you know, the idea of these youngsters that are getting pissed in bars and nursing their hangovers by, you know, then going up and climbing in the Alps, and that's an interesting concept, you know. And I think, you know, and you know, it felt to me a slightly different approach to doing a mountaineering movie, and it felt like a fun approach, you know. And the other thing was, you know, when people talk about mountains, we always hear about, you know, the Andes or the Himalayas, and actually, you know, alpinism was born in the Alps, and the Alps have got some of the most unbelievable, stunning and dangerous and extraordinary vistas in the world. And the Alps was exactly where I wanted to set this film, because I found it so fascinating personally, you know.
Yeah. So what was it that drew you to climbing itself?
What was it that drew me to climbing myself? That's a very good question. I suppose it starts with a long walk, you know. You only have to go on a kind of, you know, and it starts with scrambling. You know, you only have to climb a Scottish Munro or a Welsh 3000er, you know. Just going up to these places, there's this an incredible tranquility, and you know, and that's where some people, they stay. They, you know, you climb these hills and have fun. And I don't know, you know, when we started working on A Lonely Place to Die, I realized, well, we've got to test out the ropes, and we've got to do this, and we've got to take some climbers to take us to some more interesting places. And I was straight away, I was like, I'm fascinated by this. I love it when, you know, instead of people getting bored, you know, I'm just thinking about people 100 years ago or whatever else. A bunch of people are like, oh, what should we do? Hey, guys, we could play a game of cricket. What about a game of football? What about that? What, that big lump of rock? Yeah. Should we go and climb it? Yeah, I think there's an adventure in that, you know. and I love that. I love that we're always setting ourselves these adventures. These, what is it? They say conquistadors of the useless. You know, but you know, but I mean, that's, you know, it's the same with a game of rugby or a game of tennis. I mean, you know, yes, you can win a cup and you can win Wimbledon, but really, you've won. You know, it's a game, or it's something to do. You know, it's and so yeah. So I found that fascinating. You know.
Do you do it often?
Yes, I do, and I'm just back sort of getting myself into shape to do a winter traverse of the Coolin Mountains in the Isle of Skye next February. And that's a very, very alpine, wonderful, beautiful snow and rock with the sea a few thousand feet below you and stuff. Yes, I'll always do it, you know, until you know. And then the great thing is, if I'm lucky enough to get to old age, there's always something you can walk up, trudge up, hike up, you know. And that's what I'd like to continue doing. Absolutely. Yeah, good, clean fun, you know.
Yeah. See, I like, indoor is me, you know, like just where I live, I've got a huge, one of the tallest indoor walls just around the corner, which is great. But yeah, I don't think I'm built for outdoor. Like I have trouble enough indoor, so I'm like, feel that's
well, what I'd say to you, Kevin, is like anything, everything's graded. So, you know, you've got to climb that, you know, you've got to climb that a 5-year-old can do. You've got to climb that you've got to climb that, you know, and 5 foot to the right of that is a climb that only 3 people in the world can do, you know. And so the point is everything's graded. So, you know, trust me, there's some fucking difficult indoor climbing out there. You know, yeah. I mean, just crazy stuff, you know. Yeah. What you do have is you do have control over your weather environment indoors, of course. But yeah, there's something about that adventure, and there's something I can't describe. You know, you've done a bit of rock climbing, to climb up to a mountain, to go around a ridge, to get back down, and then you're there with your climbing partner having a pint in a bar somewhere, and it's just a wonderful feeling that you realize that somebody 100 years ago would have been doing exactly the same thing in probably exactly the same pub, Kevin. You know what I mean? And there's something quite historical and wonderful about that, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine, because I know what it's like,
Yeah.
just getting to the top of a hard, you know, route indoors. But for me, it's more because I'm basically blind. So like just seeing where the holds are and the foot height is just,
Yes.
it gets very you have to be climbing with certain people that will,
Yeah.
do the directions of like, you move your hand slightly to, you know what I mean? And so it's
Yes,
just
of
like,
course.
that's why I'm kind of like, maybe not outside. But
Well,
you know,
that's an interesting thing you point out, because you still have some eyesight.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so it's interesting, isn't it? Because the indoor walls, they always color code. They're sort of, so whether the red is a 7A and the green is a 6A and the blue is a 5A or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You've got your grades and your things, and you can mix and match it up if one wants to or whatever. But Kevin, you seem like a nice guy. I know some very cool people that would take you to a lovely outdoor wall, even if it's only 20, 30, 40 feet high or whatever. There's lots of fun to be had outdoors, and then as I said, there's something about that nature thing, like even going for a run or something like
mm,
that. I never ever ever go for a run listening to music with a pair of headphones on. I always run so that I can just listen to nature, and
yeah,
also because I just need to click whir. I do all my thought admin when I go for a run or a climb or a walk or whatever you do, and so I don't sort of clutter it up with the music side of things. So there's a lot to be said for outdoors in that side of things, definitely.
oh, for sure. I'm going hiking in Windermere over for New Year's. So yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah, the Lake District.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, we've just been there this summer. It's
Oh,
so
my,
beautiful. You'll
oh
have a
my,
wonderful time, Kevin. You have a wonderful time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's so
No,
beautiful.
this will be my third trip. Like hiking is something I enjoy doing. So as
Oh,
a kid, just going to
same here. Same here.
Wellington, Llanelli and Snowdon, you know what I mean? Just doing those little, you know what I mean? And
It's
that
beautiful.
kind of got me like, because I was always like, I'd love to kind of climb Kilimanjaro or, do some of these. But then, I think the hubris of youth, when you think you could do everything, and then I fell off a climbing wall,
Yeah.
about a decade ago, and I was a bit like,
Yeah, no, of course. It's so no, but it's so interesting what you say, that invincibility of youth, which is what I wanted to get. One of the things I wanted to sort of challenge in the movie was that thing where that fucking phrase people say when someone says, "Oh, they died doing what they were loved." Somebody can be talking about somebody surfing a 100-foot wave, and the guy gets killed, and they go, "Well, he died doing what he loved." Do you know what? I don't think sleeping is his absolutely favorite thing to do, but I guarantee you that he would have loved to have died in his sleep,
yes.
not falling off a 100-foot wave or a 100-foot cliff or what have you. So I did want to slightly challenge that myth where we try and comfort ourselves, with it, and creating a beautiful fiction. I definitely wanted to challenge that a wee bit.
But that was a very kind of poignant conversation at the end of the film. You know what I mean? Where the characters are talking and the dad is just like, I don't need any poetic bullshit. Just
Yes,
tell me
yes.
what happened. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
because like as you said, people always say those things, it's just
Well, we
like,
have a longer version of that scene actually, Kevin, and the only
oh,
reason that we cut it, he still says, I'm not interested in a beautiful fiction, Michael. And the scene was a lot longer, but I realized that all he was doing in the scene was regaling the story that we'd
yeah,
already just seen. So I
yeah.
had to cut it back a bit to maybe just get the points out of it. But I think we got the essence of the scene. And yeah, no, it's absolutely, he says, he died doing what he loved. He says, "Is that what you believe?" And he just shakes his head.
Mm.
No, I don't, I mean, you know, it's one of those. Yeah, it's an interesting sort of trying to sort of break that myth of, because we always try and comfort ourselves,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
sometimes unfortunately it's not very realistic.
No, because
Yeah.
I imagine, falling or drowning, not that fun.
No.
Not that fun. So,
Horrific. Yeah.
yeah, that's the kind of crazy thing about it. But, you know, the, like, what I got from the film was the passion. And just this conversation just about rock climbing, you can see where that has come from, because it's clear you have a true love for it. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that is the thing that sometimes is missing from films or TV. When people make these things, it's like, well, it's a gig. I'll make a film about this thing, but they don't really have the love for the thing. But when you've been embedded in something and you do that thing, I think you can always hear it in the way people talk. And so it comes out when you create and you do these things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had a real passion for the climbing and for everything, but the Alps, the history of the Alps, like for example, without dropping any spoilers, but the entire finale of Summit Fever is a sort of a battle for survival during a big storm on the south side of Mont Blanc, and I I I mean it's very loosely based on the 1961 tragedy on the Central Pillar of Freyne, which happened on the south side of Mont Blanc, where 7 people went up and only 3 people survived, and 4 people were struck by lightning. And one of them was struck by lightning 4 times and had flames coming out of their ears, and one of them fell into a crevasse and was killed, and all of this thing, and it was as I was reading it, I was like, this is fucking insane. The thing
Mm,
is, we've had a couple of reviews that just, I had a couple of reviews that just said it's too over the top, it's too unrealistic. I'm like, no, you don't understand. The Alps is fucking insane. The Alps is 10 times more dangerous in some ways because of the access to it, because of the easy access to some of
yeah,
these slopes. The Alps has more fatalities year in, year out than anywhere else in the world. And I mean nothing but horror shows. I mean over the years, and so the finale of Summit Fever is in no way an exaggeration of what can happen on Mont Blanc, any side, north or south. There's
mm,
been so much tragedy on that mountain. 1,400 people have died on Mont Blanc. If you compare that to just shy of 300 people on Everest, it's a shocker of a number.
yeah. And I kind of think that is surprising people have said that, because I think with the access that we now have had to kind of the essence of rock climbing through documentaries, and like 14 Peaks last year, I think it was last year.
Brilliant documentary. The book is
Oh,
even better. I mean, don't get me wrong, the documentary is wonderful. When I say the book is even better, I'll rephrase that and say the book is a nice accompaniment. When what I mean is there's just more there. If you
yeah,
want to
no,
chew on more, that's what I mean. The film's wonderful. The book is a wonderful accompaniment. Do them both. That's what I mean.
oh
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's always going to be more in the book, right?
Yeah.
You can always relay like this different kind of essence of something in the book, and in a film you have to cut it down to just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rawness of it. So no, I understand, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's these things that when he talks about like like losing people, and just so we know what happens on mountains. It's crazy.
Oh
It's
yeah.
probably one of those, like the only other thing I can kind of think of is like childbirth, where people do it, they go through agony, and then a few months later they might be, yeah, let's do it again. Let's have another one. And like rock climbing, we know people fall off. We know the hazards, the avalanches, just all of these different things that could happen. And it doesn't matter if you can be the best climber, but if a rock just comes loose, if one of these just freaks of nature happens, you're done for. But
Yeah.
people still go and do it.
Yeah, well, it's because it's such a beautiful thing to do, and somebody asked me the other day, could you just describe why you would go and do it? And I said, well, let me just give you a little scenario. It's February. It's 6:30 a.m. You're 3,500 feet up a jagged ridge in Scotland. You can see the ocean down one side. You can see a sea of white mountains the other. And you're walking over a jagged, snowy ridge as the most blood orange sky comes up and explodes over it. And there's only you and one other person there. And there's no one else there. And you're literally like, this is nobody's seen this. This is beyond what we were. Forget your fucking tourist views of the Bahamas with 50 people running around bloody Paradise Island or whatever. Fuck that. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I am here. I am now. And you know what? All it really took was a bit of getting up early and a bit of guts and a bit of everything. This is extraordinary. This is so fucking beautiful. Edit out that word. It was just that to me is that love of climbing,
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. It's just like getting to the top of a hill, and looking out and just seeing the clouds and, like the sun setting, and just there's something about that, because at that moment, you're the only person seeing that view. Other people will climb and they'll see stuff, but you're the only one seeing that.
That's why I wanted to climb the Matterhorn when we were filming this movie. And Freddie I realized quite early on that Freddie was very physically able, and we weren't going to be doing the main shoot for a while. But I said, let's get Freddie to climb the Matterhorn with me in this September. And, me and Freddie and two guides, I'll climb with John McCune. He can climb with Danny Ullman, dressed as Jean-Pierre. And, I was able to get these over-shoulder shots of Freddie on the summit of, and it's not even arguably, on the summit of the most beautiful mountain in the world. With, and 5,000 feet below us is a sea of cloud, and you can see Mont Blanc 50 miles away. And here I am shooting him on a lens, and there he is. And I'm like, this is a shot in a movie that we've worked hard for it, but I mean, Christ, it's never going to have that inherent artificiality. It's going to have that real look, and that was what I was trying to go for as much as possible in the whole film, was to relive my own experiences where I could. And just, I wanted to climb that few thousand feet higher. I wanted to get that camera a little bit further up to say, to just give you and anyone, that experience a little bit more, or a feel of it,
Yeah, no, the technical element of this film is incredible.
Thank you.
I think, there's films which you can watch and, like they're driving in a car and talking, and you're like, the background doesn't look real. You know what I mean? Or
I've never worked that out. Oh my God.
Yeah.
When people green screen people driving in cars, I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. You can do it really well at night. And at night, I mean, Fight Club, I only knew because I watched the making of, and they had the windows up and there's rain falling, and they had back projection behind them, and you can't tell because it's just David Fincher's a master. But if you're not David Fincher, just shoot people in cars and shoot it for real. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just, and we've seen people on mountains and we're like, that doesn't look like a mountain. But the shots, like with the snow coming, I think there's that scene where Ryan Philippe is there and the snow is coming down. He's turning around to talk to Natasha, and it's just like, how are you getting the shot? This is insane. And really,
I'll tell you how. We just filmed him in shitty weather at 12,000 feet. that is how you do that. Get them up high. Get them up high. It'll all look, good. And Ryan was a real star. Ryan was up for anything. Because I know that he's done a lot of. He takes. If he plays a military character or a police character. I do beg your pardon. If he plays a military character or a police character or anything like that, he's going to take all of that gun training, etc., very, very seriously. And he took the climbing, exactly the same way. He took the technical side of it very seriously. We had him climb with, absolute top IFMGA guide, Will Sim, and he took him all over Italy and France and the Chamonix Glacier and all different types of climbs to really sort of get Ryan in psychological shape for it. He was already in great physical shape, but just getting prepared for it. And it was I think Ryan absolutely took to it like a duck to water.
Like, what was that like, right? Get all the casting, because well, firstly, did you have anyone in mind when you casted, or did you these people just came up and they were just like, oh, they're going to be perfect?
No, I think with casting, like, with most things, you go through hundreds of audition tapes, and it was great that Ryan did that role. There are quite a lot of American guides in Chamonix, so it's quite easy to tailor make an actor, and a lot of the reason that the Americans are in places like France and Europe and wherever is because they can earn a lot more money, because in America, these American guides, they have to give a massive chunk of their fee to the national park. It's like, Jesus, really? They don't earn proper, they don't earn enough money to do that. I mean, in a way, it's like you working at a restaurant and giving half your money to the restaurant because you're just under their roof. That's nuts. And so he has a line, I make a lot more money out here than back in the Sierra. That's just inherently true, But from a casting point of view, you just go through, you just find the right people for the job. Because I always get this dinner table conversation or whatever where someone says, "Ooh, who would you like in your movie?" And I'm like, it just never works like that. If you say I want this person, it'll always end up being that person. So the truth is, just keep writing a good character and not get too attached to an idea of any specific one human being. And then you have a lot of options,
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing that I always find very curious. There's sometimes people be like, oh yeah, I had this person in mind when writing the role, but the amount of times when you see like, oh, this person's dropped out of film, there's conflict and then so it's just like, if you're writing for a specific person, but they're already doing a big franchise or something, that's gonna get all tricky.
Well, as long as you haven't signed somebody up, you've got to sort of. I remember with A Lonely Place to Die, I wrote very, very much with Franca Potente in mind for the character of Alison. I think she was called Sarah in earlier drafts, and there's a scene in A Lonely Place to Die where the character of Alison looks at a photograph of the Eiger on the wall and says, "Oh, I'd like to climb that, etc., etc., etc." And it actually suited the German character better because the Germans and the Austrians were the ones that, first conquered the north face of the Eiger in 1938. So it has a very Germanic kind of, ownership to it, at least in that particular route. And so, Franca Potente, I'd visualized, all I could do was think, oh, it's so cool. I met her in Berlin. She's a wonderful actress, a lovely person. And then because our schedule got shifted, she couldn't do it. And so we had to go on. And of course, what happens is I visualized Franca Potente, and we end up with an Australian actress, Melissa George, who does a wonderful job, but it's not how I envisaged it. But then you realize, well, so, sometimes it can be, write a character, but have an open enough mind to think other people can play that character.
Yeah. And when you casted, was it a specific thing that you gotta be open to climbing or able to climb?
Yeah, I mean, God, yes, very much for the character of Michael and Jean-Pierre. But that was fine because Michel Beale is he was a climber anyway, and he's extraordinarily physically adept at anything like that. He's a mountain biker, he's a climber, he's everything. He's Mr. Action Man. And Freddie Thorpe was he was very physically able to do bloody anything. So they were sort of challenging each other. So it was great. I had two very sort of physically adept actors. With the character of Isabel, yes, it would have been wonderful if the actor was amazing at skiing, but that wasn't going to be the case. And to become a good skier takes years and
Yeah.
years and years. And the truth is, once you put a helmet on and you put a pair of goggles on, you can be doubled from 5 feet away and no one's going to tell the difference.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit of that with the skiing going on. But so what, you know?
Yeah. I tried indoor skiing and was terrible. I was so bad. Like, there was little kids and grannies that were just blazing, and I kept them falling. At the end of the course, the guy was like, we always want to get people to pass. I just can't pass you though.
No, well, no, but you kept yourself you kept yourself safe, so that's the main thing, you know. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, there was those skiing scenes, you know, when Michael goes down like the black route, and the ones where they're on the top of the I just you know, when you see that kind of craziness and you just feel like, oh, like, even though it's not me in those positions, you do get that emotional, like, oh my god.
Well, I kind of base that sort of chase between me and my wife, because you know, my wife is a way better skier than I am. I'm a perfectly half decent skier, but she just looks like an artist on the slopes. You know what I mean? She was a skiing instructor in Vilar and Barbeleurs in the 90s, and she's just an effortlessly brilliant skier. So, you know, whenever I've ever skied with my wife, it's a case of she flies off her head, and then I meet her. You know what I mean? And so that kind of, you know, became that sort of, I thought, oh, this is quite a nice dynamic in the movie. Just have Isabella's just way better right from the start, because that's all I've ever known, you know, from my my male female kind of, you know, skiing relationships. Yeah, you know, the lady is just, you know, way better. And then, you know, I thought, well, you know, this is a bit of a metaphor there, you know, blatant metaphor about him chasing her. But yeah, you know, I thought, yeah, it could be quite fun, you know, definitely.
Yeah, no, I like, you did get really good chemistry between the characters, and those, like, the moments, you know, when at the beginning Michael isn't as accepted, but then he's accepted. And I think it's the certain lines in the film, like, listen, like, he sees people come here all the time, so you gotta be able to show that you're, you know, in it to get that. And I think that's very true, but you do feel that, right? And then when he is accepted, the dynamic completely changes, and it's very noticeable. So I thought those kind of parts of this film work really well. Like, what did you do to get that dynamic? Like, did these guys hang out for a period of time? Did you do bonding?
Chamonix is an odd, you know, Chamonix is one of those places where, you know, there's no point going to Chamonix and showing off that you've done something, because somebody sitting on the table next to you is going to have done something way more. Like, I mean, I remember we'd been filming in Switzerland, and we'd done this Eiger helicopter rescue sequence, and we were just chatting away with a few friends at the table about, you know, what an amazing experience it was. And there was just this really quiet guy at the end of the table. He was only about 27 years old, you know, perfectly nice guy, you know, just didn't, you know, he was just, you know, very just a nice. Anyway, you know, later I was chatting and somebody said, yeah, he's guided Everest 3 times. He's going again next year. And you're like, that's what I'm talking about. There's just this quiet fucking guy in the corner who just puts you to shame. So, you know, don't get me wrong, we weren't showing off, but there are plenty of, you know, we were just chatting about what we've done, but there are plenty of, you can't go to Chamonix unless you're the greatest climber in the world. And even then, the greatest climber in the world is going to be really, in Chamonix, they tend to be quite quiet and quite humble about it, you know, and, you know, they'll just have a beer or whatever else and stuff, you know, so it was, you know, it was interesting. It was definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's you know, those moments, like in the bar where everyone's just like celebrating a day of crazy climbing. And I mean, there's that bit where Isabel is just like, wait, my friends have died, but everyone's just drinking. And it's just like, yeah, but it's to celebrate, to get over those moments kind of thing. And I think you really do feel all of that. Like, and
Well, it's that excuse that every climber's ever used since whenever. I mean, I kind of sort of base that attitude on Dougal Haston and all these German climbers from the 1966 route on the Eiger, where John Harlan fell to his death during the climb, and he fell to his death. And Chris Wallington was on the radio, and he was like, "Well, I presume you're all coming down." And Dougal Haston was up there with the Germans. He's like, well, we think we should continue the climb in honor of him. Now, let's be honest. Yes, there's a bit of that, but there's also nothing is going to stop me doing this.
Yeah.
Even the death of somebody else. And if we can, they named the route after John Harlan, and but there seems to be this, like, even when death gets in the way, if it's not directly in the way, if you can sidestep it, then a lot of these people will just carry on. And I found that interesting. And when I say a lot of these people, I mean a certain mountaineers of a certain, of a certain headspace. But I found that fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that interesting thing. There's like different ways of looking at it, I guess. Because I can understand I've set out to do a thing, I don't want to not do the thing, or the kind of mindset of, well, if I stop now, will I ever go back? Right. So I can see it from that kind of point of view. But then there is that, like, yo, your friends just died, like, or you had this really horrific accident. So it's like, it's interesting. It's an interesting kind of.
Yeah, when you've got a film that doesn't involve around, because we it's not a plot based film. There's no ticking clock. There's no bomb. There's no kidnapped child to rescue. It's simpler than that. It's an adventure movie.
Yeah. And when kind of conceiving all of this, like, after you did your shots and everything, or did you feel that you were able to capture what you initially had?
Oh, well, we captured this over a number of years, because we started shooting footage on this film in 2017, and the actual shoot was in 2021. So in 2017, 2018, and 2019, we were getting mountaineering footage, because I knew that we could shoot on the Matterhorn in September in certain safe bits. I knew we could shoot in the Eiger in either November or in sort of April. All these different times of year, even though they looked very similar at the time, they would have had to have one crazy perfect spring to have gone to all these places safely. So, we did all this work. So we were matching up the storyboards and the shot lists, and then we had the real shots we could match even closer than storyboards. And so it just became like a massive jigsaw puzzle, Kevin, and we had the sequences. We got the Dent de Géant, we got Matterhorn, we got Eiger, we got Mont Blanc, and then there were these just, walls of storyboards around the production office. And, me and my second unit, third unit, and we go through and see what we've ticked off, see what we got, see how we can match what we've already got, see how you can match footage we had 2 years ago when so-and-so was there. Right, look there, he moves his head just at that point. So make sure when you go and shoot Michelle, he does that same movement. I can match it, blah, 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 blah. So it became like a massive, massive, massive jigsaw puzzle, I guess. And I'm not a mechanic, but how a mechanic can can strip an engine and put it back together again. He knows what the fuck he's doing, because he's just methodical about it. And that's what it really came down to. It's just a methodical. Yeah, it's very complex, but it's methodical. Ultimately, you have X number of shots to create, a believable sort of scenario of it. Yeah.
And how difficult is it, like, being able to match those things up? Because you can look and go, oh, he moves his head like that, but reenacting that, like, is it sometimes slightly
no, Kevin, in some ways it's actually easier. When you've actually got footage to go and match to, it's much better than sort of having stories, having sort of pictures or whatever that you're trying to do something, and then in a unit months later or months earlier will or won't match. If you've actually got pictures and all that, you can really, if I've got a shot of you hanging off a helicopter from 2 years ago and I need to recreate a certain bit of it, I can see exactly. Oh, I can see you even moved your head like that and did a certain nuanced move. Well, if we get the closer up shot to do, it's gonna cut like butter. It's gonna cut
Okay.
perfectly. So in some ways, matching stuff that, you know, I always say when you're filming an action sequence, as much as possible, if you can have your stunt or your action people or your stunt people, it's better if you almost shoot their stunt first, you know, before stunt after first, and then the actor can match. It's much better to get the actor to match a professional doing it perfectly than an actor doing climbing or whatever the hell he's doing first, and then a stuntman slightly matching an actor not doing it so well in order to make. So it's much better to get, you know, to match to, you know, the pros. And so yeah, it's a long process, but you know it comes down to, you know, you got to just keep ticking off those shots, you know.
Okay. No, actually, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the professional knows how to do it properly. So them having to try and go, God, I've got to try and mess it up like the actor messed it up a little bit.
Yeah, do it the other way around. Absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you know, you put your two, you know, you put somebody who can't drive around behind the wheel of a car, and then yeah, exactly, do it the right way around. Yeah.
But so matching is simple when you have footage like that, but
it's not simple. It's nothing simple. Nothing on this film was simple. Nothing about this film was simple. It was doable. It was doable. Yeah. I mean, it's only now when I look back, and this film was fucking crazy. Just everything about this film was just maxed up to a 10 about how we were going to achieve these climbing sequences. It's just so. We just went so far what was required, but to try and get them to just look better than, you know, what you'd expect is what our plan was, you know.
But what's the mental fatigue like? Because if you started doing this in 2017, you know, and it's just like knowing that it's not going to be finished in a year, and so you've got to come back.
Yeah, it was frustrating, but we were frustrated because we had executive producers who couldn't get the money in places at certain times, and people being dicked about, and then the pandemic comes along, and it all took far longer than it needs be. But while that happened, I just kept going, well, I'll go and grab this footage. I'll go and grab this footage. So I wasn't just going to sit there and have a boohoo. I'd go and get extra stuff. And then, but yes, it was frustrating because it wasn't a well-produced film. I'm not talking about the main producer, Tin and Hamby, who was brilliant, but you know, the other names and all those exec producers, I think they didn't really understand how complicated it was, and I don't think we had the support that we needed. So you know, it was a tough project. It was a really tough project. But you know, but we got to the finish line. We got there. You know.
Yeah, like it must feel really just satisfying. Now it's out, and you know you've got this finished product, right? You had this vision. You wanted to capture.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, you know, as I said, I made a film for myself. I mean, what's not satisfying is when I get a couple of sort of couch potato American reviews who tell me that I've filmed in a polystyrene set and something doesn't look realistic. You know, so I get a couple of sort of arsey reviews from America, and you know, when you read somebody saying, you know, the ending is too over the top, it's just too much, and you're like, well, this is based on, you know, a 1961 tragedy on the Central Pillar of Franey, and when someone doesn't know what the fuck they're writing about, I don't mind. If someone wants to criticize, you know, your script, or somebody wants to criticize your characters or your writing, I'll take that. I'll take that on the chin. But when somebody wants to criticize certain things I know what I'm talking about, I'm not so interested in. It's one of those funny ones. So we got, you know, some good reviews come in, then we got some not so good reviews come in, then we got some more good reviews come in. It's weird. You know, some people seem to really get the film, and some people it just seem to just fly straight over their heads. And it's a very simple story. It's about a few youngsters who want to go and climb one crazy summer, and you know, either go with it or don't. But I'm very pleased with the film. You know, it's, you know, and yeah, it's nice to make a movie where somebody's not shooting somebody. You know, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, I find like, you know, these different kind of stories like really compelling, you know, because
Yeah,
we get a lot of gangster films and, you know, like car chases and just all of this kind of stuff. So seeing these more human kind of stories, yeah, like people doing these challenges and that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff, that's what's so fascinating, you know, and just like those different kind of elements, like when JP is talking about Jean Claude, is it Jean Claude? No,
Jean-Pierre.
Daniel, the speed climber.
Ah, Damien Rue. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, Damien. Yeah. Yes, when he's talking about that, and everyone's just like, oh, well, you know, it was because, and he's like, no, it's the sponsors, like the, you know, and you're just like, yeah, I imagine that would be a thing. And this is like, I think
Well, I would put a caveat to that. I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves. When, you know, one thing I would always say is that when I have dialogue coming out of the mouth of characters, this is not me putting my, you know, my
Mm,
thoughts, I'm not telling people what to do. This is not my propaganda here. I'm firmly of the belief that characters speak in films, and a lot of them are either wrong or misinformed, or they have a certain point of view. So, for example, you know, here's where the pressure is. I don't believe, you know, I know, for example, Alex Honnold's sponsors. They don't want him climbing anything. They would be much happier now. He's done his Everest. He's done his El Capitan. You know, they'd be much happier if Alex Honnold was in the, you know, by a nice indoor climbing wall at the cafe, you know, chatting away, doing whatever, you know, doing a nice slideshow, whatever else. He's a charming chap, etc. They'd be super happy with that. However, what Alex Honnold says in his movie is somebody's going to do a crazier climb than this. Somebody is going to do it now, to do a crazier climb than Freerider without a rope, which goes up, you know, which is, you know, you're talking about something that goes up to about, you know, in British terms, E7, E8, you know, 3,000 feet of vertical and overhanging rock. But what he said is, he says somebody's going to go and do something more impressive.
mm,
Well, and in a way, where the pressure comes from is not by the sponsors themselves, it's not by him himself. It's that, you know, if somebody wants to become famous at something, they have to outdo that thing.
yeah.
So the pressure is actually on the climber themselves. But somebody somewhere is going to say, well, if somebody goes and free solos Freerider tomorrow, it's as impressive a feat, but it's already been done.
Mm,
It's not going to get any press at all. Doesn't matter how difficult it is. It's not going to get any press. So somebody is going to have to push themselves to do something harder, bigger, bolder, scarier to make people go, oh shit, this guy's even, whoa, this guy's on a par with, or whatever. So I think it's actually people putting that own pressure on themselves. So it's most certainly not the sponsors doing it. It's people wanting to get the sponsors to notice them. Oh shit, I don't look like Brad Pitt. I don't look like, you know, Angelina Jolie. So I've got to be absolutely the best at blah, 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 or whatever, you know. So yeah, no, it's an interesting, you know, so that was my sort of thing about the sponsors. But, you know, whatever the characters are saying, the truth of the matter is they're putting the pressure on themselves because, you know, sponsors, you know, otherwise, yeah, there's otherwise there's no big money. They'll just be given free gear. You know, they'll still be skint. They'll still be working in a bar. They might be given a few North Face jackets and they might be given a few Arc'teryx bits and pieces, but you know that doesn't mean you're sponsored. You know, wearing a bit of gear.
yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
yeah.
But I just thought it was an interesting thing for the guy to say. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because I think there's times in, you know, we'll see this and it like we don't get those conversations. So it's just like the conversation itself. There's you like those conversations in the film. You do feel, yeah, that feels like that character would say that thing. You know what I mean? That I thought that was the interesting thing about
Oh,
that
thank you.
movie. You
Thank you,
know,
Kevin. Yeah, no, good. I'm glad. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know,
well,
definitely.
yeah, it's like the conversation at the end, because I thought that was because there's so many different ways you could end this film, right? And so you've got that poignant conversation with the family, and then that other conversation, you know what I mean? And you're just like, oh, I mean, that is very, you know what I mean? She's kind of right in what she's saying. And then you finish with that climb made me mad. No, because I'm just like, wait, there's no rope. Because was he roped on that final climb? And you just pan out and you see how high it is. And it's just like, Jesus Christ.
Well, that was Freddie. That is Freddie Thorpe, the actor, and he was on a climb that was 300 plus meters. So it was 1,000-foot vertical to overhanging, and you know that's enough to do yourself a mischief if you fall. What he did was we had him wear his harness on the inside of his trousers, and so he had a top rope. He had a top rope come up, you know, literally through his flies and up to that, and we had him, you know, held on a top rope. Now but they were not controlling his climb. They were only using the top rope as protection if needs be. So he is actually free climbing. You can see he's not being pulled in any part of that bit. He's free climbing that bit. The rope is there in case, but and then all we had to do was digitally erase the rope, because I cannot put an actor on 1,000-foot cliff face without a rope. It's you know, the insurance, you know, as I said to Freddie, I said, once we've done the visual effects on that and we've digitally erased the rope, I said, your mother's gonna have a fit when she sees that. And you know what, she'd probably have just as much of a fit if she saw the footage of him with the rope, because it still looked terrifying. You know, it's still blimey. Yeah. You know, it was it was a good shot. Yeah.
Oh, but it just makes you feel so uncomfortable watching that. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's so high.
I know. You know, no, it's yeah, it's crazy.
And getting them to, you know, earlier when I mentioned about, you know, in the casting, like seeing if these people could climb or were down to climb, like how were those conversations? Be like, Freddie, do you want to do the Matterhorn with me? Like, you know what I mean?
That was yeah, because that was ahead of time from the main shoot, because you know we shot that, you know, considerably before the main shoot. And no, I did. I you know, I basically, yeah, I got in touch and said, hey man, you know, I think we've chatted and we think, you know, you could climb the Matterhorn. And he's like, what, really? I was like, yeah. Look, have a look at this. Come to see. Yeah, and he was up for it. And you know, a young actor, and he thinks, you know, you've got to think a young actor thinks, well, hang on, that's quite an impressive thing on my CV to say, you know, I actually did above and beyond what was required, i.e., just saying lines and blah blah blah. And you know, yeah, you know, I mean, I would say, you know, I mean, the guides that were out there, they referred to Freddie as a climber, as a mountaineer. They said he's a proper climber. You know, he's built for it. He's got really good moves. He's you know, he was amazing.
Oh, I mean, watching like him in this, because I watched the first season of oh God, what's it? Winx,
Fate, the Winx saga, yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, it's young adult. It's not really made for me, right? But watching him do this just blew me away, right? Because you watch those young adult things, like, you know, there's so many of them, Maze Runner, Hunger Games, and, you know, people doing all stuff that's obviously CGI and all of that. And, you know, the acting is good and all of that. But when you see someone do those sorts of feats in Summit Fever, that makes you go, okay.
Yeah, no, he was, we put him in some amazing, but I mean, gosh, some of the stuff we shot at night at the end when he was in the ice cave, and you can see all the breath coming off them, and this is not digital breath or they were just, you know, I mean, a lot of that nighttime stuff at the end was shot in temperatures of beyond -10, and you know, it was you know, very it was a very physically challenging role, and he took to it like a duck to water. He really did. You know, he's you know, if you want to make an action movie, put Freddie in it, because he'd do anything. You know. Yeah.
Hey, well, you know, the James Bond role's up for grabs. So
yeah, well, I thought, I mean, I personally think he's a little bit young for it, but I mean, gosh, give him put 10 years on him, and then yeah. I think he'd be up there. He'd be a good choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you said, look, having this on the resume, just knowing someone did that stuff, I imagine any director, would be like, yeah, no, I want that person on my shoot.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. No, and he was a trooper. He was a trooper, and he believed in me, and he believed in what I wanted to do, and he embraced it. And a lot of actors wouldn't do that, and he did, and I'm eternally grateful to him for that.
Yeah, no, you got your crew, your people to do some crazy stuff, man.
Well, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't ask people to do anything. I wouldn't sort of either do myself or guides wise. I mean, I did yeah, as I said, I wanted to get up to these crazy places and shoot and do these wonderful adventures. I climbed the Matterhorn with him. I stood there side by side with him. I mean, I have to say, if someone says, what's the most extraordinary location you've ever shot or film set? And I'd say, oh, the summit of the Matterhorn at 14,692 feet, and it's only a foot wide. And you got 4,000 foot that way and 4,000 foot that way as a drop, and we're here. And that was a location to shoot in, I can tell you.
I can look watching that scene when they're on top of the mountain, and it's just like, hey, like it makes you feel a little nervous. But reading the production notes and you going, oh yeah, and there's a drop that side and the drop, like,
yeah, no, yeah, but it's worth it. It's worth its weight in gold. It looks as good as anything, I think.
No,
yeah.
definitely. Where do you go from here, though, Julian?
Where do I go from here? That's a very, very interesting question that I don't have an answer for. I'm not, I have a couple of scripts in the pipeline now, and a couple of movies and some television work. I might take a break from the mountains for a little bit, but we'll be back. We'll be back. I see Summit Fever as part 2 of I see it as an unofficial sequel to A Lonely Place to Die. So I see it as sort of part 2 of my mountain trilogy. So I will be back. Maybe not with the next movie, but I'll definitely be back. Absolutely, definitely.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, if it's anything like this, boy, I cannot. Yeah, definitely can't wait to watch it. And I guess, doing a Lonely Place to Die taught you so much about the shots you need and everything like that. So like doing Summit Fever, like was there a lot of kind of things that you learned in the shoot and new ways to get shots and stuff?
It's everything's achievable. It all Kevin, it all starts with a pen and a bit of paper, and you draw the shot, design the shot you want, and then talk to people about how you're going to achieve it. Could I achieve it hanging off here, or could we do, and it depends whether, you can achieve everything in a computer, or you can achieve subtle green screen effects. You can do some little bit. Sometimes it's just a case of enhancing something that's already there, or, so it's, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, but I've put myself through the ringer. I don't know if I'll ever have such a physically tough film to make again. As I said, I'm even working on a sci-fi script, and I'm doing a sci-fi movie down the line, and you actually think it's going to be a lot more expensive, but it's not going to be as tough as being, on the side of the north face of the Eiger with questionable weather. It's just not going to be like that. It's a controlled environment. You're indoors or whatever, Yeah. So, yeah, it might be a bit more time consuming, but so it's an interesting
one. Like, are there, genre films which you think to yourself, I'd like to do, my take on that, or I'd like to have a little play in that field, or is it just?
Yes, but if I say it now, somebody will nab my idea. I know how it is. No, I know how it is. And then you go, oh no, why did I? Yeah. So watch this space, Kevin, and then we'll have another chat down the line about, my next movie, because it's been very fun talking to you. So we'll do this again. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, man. Well, I really appreciate that. And yeah, no, I honestly was blown away by,
Oh, thank you.
just these elements in the film. Like the only thing I was a little skeptical about, and I will say it, was just like, them falling in love in a week, which Michael does address where in the bar. You know what I mean? But that
Well, it's one of the, you can call it youth, you can call it the power of youth, but it's that holiday romance, isn't it? It's
yeah,
not. It's
yeah.
you call it love, but what else do you call it at that age?
Mm,
And actually, one could argue actually there's probably a lot of people that have had probably some of the most intense romances over the course of a couple of weeks than over a 10-year marriage.
yeah.
You know,
And,
and that's the simple truth. So I mean, what's his line? I fell in love with you. He says it. She acknowledges it with a smile. She doesn't reciprocate it. It's I've definitely, when I was younger, I know how strong my feelings were. Now
mm,
I'm old. Now we're old and cynical, Kevin.
I
We're
think
like,
that,
oh,
yeah, I think,
that's it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
but
that if I was younger, you'd be like, yeah,
no, but
no,
this is it. This is it. Don't. This is it. Sometimes you've got to stop. We have to stop these middle-aged sort of armchair mountaineers. Sort of sit there and say, oh, would somebody have that strong feelings to somebody in a week? Fuck, man, you have that strong feelings to somebody in 24 hours. You can, absolutely, I mean, God, yes, of course. But yes, I mean, we cynically just say, oh, it's a holiday romance. It doesn't mean anything. But it's always somebody that wasn't in love and didn't experience the holiday romance that says that. Because I think
mm,
we have very, very, very intense feelings when we're that age.
yeah,
Just that, and I mean, my parents married when my mother was 18 and my father was 21. And they had this intense feeling to each other, and they remained married for 50 years. So but my point being is that I think we can be very cynical
mm,
about youthful love, and I actually think in some ways it's a lot purer and a lot less convoluted and a lot less compromised than love as we get older. That would be an interesting point of putting it.
yeah. No, there's definitely less baggage, you
Oh,
know,
fuck yeah.
and I think
Yeah,
it's like as you get older, I think it's like sometimes you look at it as like the degrees of love, right? Because I think
yeah.
there's more than just love, right? That early stage love, which you might call love, right? But it's like it can get deeper. You know what I mean? It can just be surface level. There's like, I mean, you kind of, I think as I've got older, I look at it in these different ways. So yeah, you're definitely right. I'm a cynical old
I will also say that the actor Freddie Thorpe and the actress Matilda Wanye, I mean, they met each other, and within an hour of meeting, they fell for each other, 100%. They had the most intense romance during the course of us filming. So there's definitely a chemistry between them, because there was a chemistry between them. And in a way, I was like, well, that's good. That helps us. If they like each other and they're all, but they had these, they were very intense and incredibly passionate in, me and, my 58-year-old first AD Simon, and we're sitting there chatting away, and we got a million other things to do and blah blah blah, and we don't have time. We're too busy making a film to think about that level of passion and love. We're gonna be up early. We got too many fucking shots to do. We're gonna get up the mountain, and the weather forecast is shit, and then the car's broken down, and blah 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 blah. We got too much to worry about. But that as we were saying, that youthful, less baggaged. Do we call it love? Do we call it infatuation? We call it infatuation when we're older, but you'd never say, I felt infatuated with you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that. You say what you feel, which is, I fell in love with you, I did.
Yeah.
It felt like love. What is this feeling? It feels like love. That's, and we have to remind ourselves when we write that stuff and when we experience that stuff. I had some very intense feelings when I was a 17-year-old and, a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old, a 22-year-old, whatever it is. I don't know. I find love was a lot simpler and a lot more easy to understand at that age than as one gets older,
Mm.
and because then also when you have children, I think love becomes a completely different thing, because you can't, your children become everything, and they become everything that you protect, and so much of your heart goes into that I God, Christ, I can't even remember. It's just it all changes, and that's not a bad thing. It just adapts and evolves and changes.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
this film was very much about what I call young love, and and young love is over as quickly as it becomes. And yes, you have a big cry about it and you move on. But that's not unrealistic. That's yeah. However heartbroken she is at the end, I'm sure Isabel in 5 or 10 years' time will be wandering around with 2 or 3 beautiful children somewhere in Paris doing something with somebody else who's one, and so, we all move on. We have these passionate periods in our life, and we move on, and we've all got these interesting stories, love stories, all sorts, in our lives, and that youth. I just don't want to be cynical about youth. I guess it's a very long-winded way of saying it, Kevin. I don't want to be cynical about youth, because about being in love when we're young, because it's such a strong emotion, and we're so young, and we're so not. Nobody trained us how to feel.
No.
Nobody tried to prepare us how you're going to feel aged 18 or 17 or 19, and it's different, and so, if he says he fell in love with her in a week and a half, 2 weeks, I buy it. Yeah, as I say, does Mr. Keyboard Warrior in Arkansas buy it? I don't know. I don't care. Yeah, there you go.
The emotion on the screen, though, that feels palpable. You know what I mean? And those scenes between these characters, between Luke, is it Luke and Natasha? Luke.
Oh, hang on, Leo. Yes, Leo, played by Ryan Phillippe. Yeah.
All of these relations, they do feel like
Yeah, they've got a lot of charm, and they had a lot of feel, and they actually bonded really well as a group. They were all very fond of each other. Ryan, Hannah, Freddie, Michelle, Mathilde, Teo, Christine, who plays Rudy. They were all very fond of one another. They were a tight knit group, and they were really they gave they were really just. They were nice to be, they gave each other all the strength, and they created a good bond, and I felt that bond, pointing a camera at them, absolutely.
No, that's great, man. But yeah, look, the people that say it looks fake, they're foolish, because I bought all of that shit.
No, there was only one review that said it looked fake, but I just couldn't get it out of my head, and it was like, just shut up, yeah. You know what, John? We'll take him up to the top of Mont Blanc in a storm, and
that's
we'll give him a sleeping bag, and we'll pick him up in the morning and see how it feels. Yeah.
Hey, no, this has been a great.
Oh, this has been a great. I'm still here, but I've lost you. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll try and hack back in.
Oh, well, yeah, computer crash, but that was incredible chat with Julian. Oh, hold on. My computer just crashed. I have no clue that.
I'm so glad that I was able to link back in to say a proper goodbye, because otherwise I'd have been really gutted if we just been
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was just like, what the? No.
I was there on screen going hello, but it doesn't matter because I got you back on. Kevin, it's been really, really great talking to you.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to make some chicken nuggets for the kids.
Yes. After the movie, they definitely appreciate that. But just tell people how they can follow you before I let you go.
Oh, yes. I'm on Instagram. So please find me, Julian.Gilby on Instagram, or on Facebook as well. But yeah, please give me a follow. I'm doing lots of fun things. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation with the very lovely Kevin here. And Kevin, to be continued. We shall do this again.
Awesome, man. I look forward to it. And yeah, all the success with the film.
Oh, thank you.
You feel the adrenaline, man. You feel it. It was great. So
Kevin,
well done to you and everyone involved.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. You take great care of yourself. I'll speak to you in due course. Thank you. Good luck with everything.
All right, man. You too.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye.